Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Can I also extend my thanks to Bonnie for organising this meeting. This is our first public meeting as Hobson's Pledge, and she has certainly done us proud in terms of getting a fantastic audience here. I also want to particularly thank Casey. You've just heard her give a speech, which I think is very special indeed. She and I are the two spokespeople for Hobson's Pledge, and I'm very proud indeed to be speaking with her. It's absolutely crucial that Hobson's Pledge does not become, or be, that we seem to be, anti-Maori. We are not anti-Maori, we're not anti-anybody, we are pro-New Zealanders. And it's vitally important that that message is clearly understood by everybody. I want to spend a few moments now to give you some background to how Hobson's Pledge came to be. A few months back, I was approached by a friend who said to me, I'm worried. The country is going seriously off the rails, with the government creating more and more divisions between those who have a Maori ancestor and those who don't. He mentioned the Independent Maori Statutory Board in Auckland, which gives tribal representatives voting rights on most Auckland Council committees. He mentioned the proposal of the bill to amend the RMA, which would require local governments within 30 days of election to invite local tribes into so-called iwi participation agreements to enable tribes to participate in planning and decision-making. He mentioned the government's proposal to involve tribes in the allocation of fresh water, something traditionally the sole responsibility of local government. He wondered why the large tribally owned businesses, which have emerged from settlement of historical grievances, don't have to pay tax like other businesses do. He felt that more and more politicians were seeking to divide us, in clear contradiction to the promise which Governor Hobson made in 1840, as each chief signed the treaty, we are now one people. And indeed, of course, in direct contradiction to the treaty itself, which says in Article 3 that all New Zealanders would henceforth have the rights and privileges of British subjects. He suggested we should form a new political party to fight this particular brand of separatism. I said, look, you're right to be worried, friend, but setting up a new political party isn't the solution. Single issue political parties don't succeed anywhere, to my knowledge, and furthermore, it'd be very hard to gather sufficient resources to make that work effectively in the short term. But the conversation did get me thinking. We are on a dangerous and slippery slope. Since the conversation with my friend, a Labour Member of Parliament has introduced a bill to Parliament, the so-called Members' Ballot, which, if it were drawn from the ballot and passed, would entrench Maori electorates. Entrenched means it's very hard to reverse in the parliamentary system. Those electorates, of course, were set up in 1867 for 5 years. Later extended to 10 years. The Royal Commission on the Electoral System, which sat in the 1980s, recommended they be scrapped if New Zealand adopted MMP. But of course we did adopt MMP 20 years back, we've still got the Maori electorates. With more than 20 Maori MPs in Parliament, including of course the MP for Tauranga, only 7 of those 23, 25 MPs elected in separate Maori electorates, there clearly is no longer a need for separate Maori electorates. We've also seen in recent weeks the so-called Maori King express the expectation that by 2025, Maori New Zealanders should, quote, share sovereignty. Share sovereignty? What on earth does he mean by that? We all share sovereignty, we all have a vote. But I don't think that's what he meant. Setting up a new political party doesn't make sense. But the situation is nevertheless very serious. And as a result, a number of us, as Casey has said, have formed the Hobson's Pledge Trust. Hobson's Pledge, of course, because that's what Hobson said as each chief signed the treaty. We are now one people. We're committed to doing everything we can to raise awareness of the extreme dangers of the path which excessive governments have been taking us down, and to oppose at every opportunity measures which would divide us on the basis of when we or our ancestors came to New Zealand. We're totally opposed, for example, to the independent Maori statutory board in Auckland. It should be scrapped. We're totally opposed to requiring local governments to invite local tribes into iwi participation agreements, which is the tenor of the RMA amendment bill going through Parliament at the moment. We're totally opposed to separate Maori electorates. They should be abolished without delay. We're totally opposed to the notion that the treaty created some kind of partnership between Maori and the Crown. We're totally opposed to requiring the Hauraki Gulf Forum to have half its governing body appointed by tribes. In short, we are totally opposed to any governance arrangement where people are appointed based on their ancestry of when they came to New Zealand. Essentially, we want to affirm, and affirm strongly, Governor Hobson's pledge that we are now one people. We will protest as loudly as we can every time the government proposes laws that give some kind of political preference for those of the Maori ancestor, as is happening now, as I mentioned a moment ago, with the amendment to the RMA. Or when a local government provides votes to unelected tribal appointees, as happened recently in the Masterton District Council. Those supporting the trust also propose that we provide financial support to any political party, or parties plural, which commit to end this divisive nonsense after the 2017 election. Which party might qualify for support? I very much hope, of course, that all parties make such a commitment. The National Party has long had a commitment to, quote, equal citizenship in its constitution. And one law for all was a major slogan for the party in both the 2002 and 2005 election campaigns. In 2002, National Party leader Bill English gave a speech in which he reminded us that, and I quote, the treaty created one sovereignty and so one common citizenship. Unless New Zealanders accept the treaty at something much closer to its face value, we could destroy something unique. Maori was sovereign in 1840, but the Treaty of Waitangi fully conveyed that sovereignty, unquote. In 2003, Bill English committed the future national government to abolishing the Maori electorates. When I was myself leader of the National Party, I gave a speech to the Oriwa Rotary Club, often prefaced by the infamous speech at the Oriwa Rotary Club, affirming national support for our common citizenship. And certainly the public reaction to that speech suggests a great many New Zealanders agreed with me. In 2008, John Key campaigned on scrapping the Maori electorates when the historical treaty settlements had been concluded, then expected in about 2014. But sadly, National has retreated a very long way from those commitments. The ACT Party has long been committed to treating all New Zealanders as equal before the law, irrespective of when they or their ancestors arrived in New Zealand. I understand the party is still committed to this principle, though David Seymour has not been making a major issue of it. I'm bound to say that it does nothing at all for my sense of humour that the only political party leader who's making a big issue of this at the moment is Winston Peters. I have to admit that I disagree with Mr. Peters on a wide range of issues, but on the principle that all New Zealanders should be equal before the law, he is absolutely right. And having Maori ancestry himself, he can say what needs to be said without being accused of being racist. This year, he has repeatedly, not once, not twice, at least 3 times to my certain knowledge, said to the national government, I will give you meaningful reform of the RMA, not the wishy-washy stuff you've got in the current bill, on one proviso, that is to eliminate all racial preferences from the RMA. For the life of me, I cannot understand why the National Party hasn't taken up his offer. In any event, I think we're long past the time when New Zealanders should take Governor Hobson's words seriously and move to a colourblind society where every New Zealander has the same political rights, where there are no separate Maori electorates, where nobody is appointed to local government committees because they have a Maori ancestor, where water is allocated by local councils, where businesses run by tribal authorities pay tax in the same way that all other businesses do. Ultimately, the only thing which will persuade the government to change direction is votes, and the threat that if they continue on their present track, they will lose power. Our goal is to ensure that after the election next year, a government is elected which is strongly committed to reversing the drift towards separatism and committed instead to driving towards a country where every citizen has the same political rights. To that end, we've established, as I mentioned earlier, the Hobson's Pledge Trust. Set up a website, which is the address of which is mentioned on the page you have in front of you, issued press statements, run advertisements, and won support from a great many people all over the country. We ran half-page ads in the New Zealand Herald on Friday and the Herald on Sunday 2 days ago, drawing attention to the tribal involvement which is proposed by local governments if the bill to amend the RMA is passed in its present form. This is the first of our public meetings, but I have no doubt there will be many more. The Hobson's Pledge Trust would greatly value your support. Thank you very much.